The Declaration of Independence. So if we break down the title, we can figure out the purpose of this document without even reading it. So the title is the Declaration of Independence. So the two words we can pick out that are important are declare independence, which is great, but what exactly does that mean? So it's great that we figured out that this paper was was basically declaring independence. But from who? What was it about? Who's declaring independence again? Why? Who is this letter written to? But don't worry, I've got you covered. So I like to think of the Declaration of Independence as a breakup letter. In a sense, the colonies were breaking up with King George of Britain. He was mistreating the colonies, and we weren't happy. So when King George received the Declaration of Independence, it was like any breakup. He was pretty upset. What do you mean we're done? King George said over the phone to America. Just kidding, they didn't have phones or anything like that. It was pretty much slow as molasses to get a message anywhere because everything traveled by boat. But anyway, you get the point. So let's go back to how this began. Hashtag Throwback Thursday. So remember the taxation without representation thing? So colonists were fed up with being forcibly taxed on sugar, tea, paper. Remember this? And remembering the Quartering Act, where basically colonists had to take in the British soldiers, feed them, give them a place to sleep, a place to go to the bathroom. And it's kind of like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with my own family. This is pretty much how the colonists felt. Yeah, totally get that. Here's another one, the Townshend Acts. So basically, the king said, let's place these acts and laws on the colonists, and it basically placed another 72 taxes, or another tax on 72 imported items. So that's just another thing that the colonists had to deal with. And the money that was collected from these taxes went straight to paying the salaries of the British officers staying in the colonies. So not only were the colonists paying all these taxes, but all the money they were giving was going towards something that they didn't even like. So the protests against these acts, the Townshend Acts that the king forcibly put on the colonies, ultimately led to what we know as the Boston Massacre. So as we know, the colonists were protesting all of these overreaches of power that the British were demonstrating. The colonists, basically, we have the Boston Tea Party, we have the First and Second Continental Congress, where delegates from all 13 colonies met to kind of come up with a plan to do something to change the situation they were in. The colonists tried everything to reconcile and fix the issues that they had with Britain, but to no avail. So, Thomas Jefferson, who was a young guy from Virginia, took on the challenge of writing this letter to King George. Here we go, we got TJ right here. And if you ask me, it's a very scary task to even do this. Basically, he and everyone who signed it put their life on the line for independence. Also, I have a super important off topic side note that I want everybody to know because I think that this is pretty cool and super difficult to do. So, if we look, this is the Declaration of Independence. As you could tell, it was not written on a computer, it was written by hand by Thomas Jefferson himself. I mean, look at this thing. How many times do you think he had to rewrite this thing to get it perfect? He had to do it by hand. Obviously, his handwriting is beautiful. So, and also, if you look at the lines, it looks like it was written on a computer. Do you know how hard it is to write in a straight line like that? I have no idea how he did it. I mean, even the people who signed the letter on the bottom couldn't even do it. And Thomas Jefferson did it for like hundreds of lines. So, anyway, super cool side note that's totally off topic and unrelated, but thank you for visiting my TED Talk. Okay, anyway. So at the Second Continental Congress, the government of the 13, oh my goodness, colonies. So at the Second Continental Congress, which was the government of the 13 colonies, had each member read the Declaration of Independence and sign their name on the bottom. And this was done in 1776. So each person who signed their name was a huge deal. They basically identified themselves by name for King George to see who could send his British soldiers to go and kill all of them. So it's basically like, hey, I'm basically committing treason against the motherland. Here's my name, address, come find me. I'm from Virginia. Pretty scary stuff. So these people, they're pretty set on independence. Now, the biggest name written on the Declaration of Independence is John Hancock. And comparatively, if you look at his signature versus everybody else's signature looks like they're a little bit afraid. John Hancock was basically saying, hey, I'm doing this. I want independence. I'm not afraid of you. Here's my name. Come find me. We are going to war. So, pretty brave stuff. I feel like we forget this often. So basically, once the letter was completed and signed and done, they sent the breakup letter over to King George, who was obviously furious to be losing his colony. And by this point, the Revolutionary War was well underway. And today, we're going to be talking about the actual contents of the Declaration.